Hello everyone, please bear with me while everyone jumps on. If you are watching the replay, hello. If you would like to support the channel, badges are on. You do not have to, however. Today we are going to be talking about some interesting things while I sip my tea. Hello, hello. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello. So today we're going to be doing some conversation where I'm going to be sharing with you some conversations that I've had with my higher self and some things about the dimensions. Hopefully this conversation will bring you some clarity for yourself. So just give me a few moments while everyone jumps on. This might help you understand why a lot of your family members or friends are still asleep, okay? And when I say asleep, I mean asleep to the spiritual world, have not experienced the spiritual world, and might never experience the spiritual world, depending on whether they choose to shift dimensions or not. So, hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello, hello. So, welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'll start talking now. Okay, so I often have conversations with my higher self once I found out about my higher self from my spirit guides, because my spirit guides contacted me first. And after I did my initiations, I worked with my spirit guides for a really long time, but I was not aware of my higher self for a long time. We have multiple dimensions to ourselves. We are multidimensional beings, okay? And I mean that in various ways. Multidimensional, most people that have multiple personality disorder or schizophrenia, they don't actually have those disorders. Those are actually, there's a spiritual cause and a quantum physics reason for that. There's a reason for those disorders. And the reason for that, a lot of the times, is because people can't handle when they shift dimensions from a place of trauma or a place of being forced to shift dimension in order to survive, which then develops into this mental disorder where your mind is jumbled and overwhelmed by spiritual entities. Okay? So, we're multidimensional beings. First of all, we have a shadow self, which is where we keep most of our repressed beliefs, our repressed emotions, our repressed and oppressed feelings, okay? So we have that shadow self, which is why we have a lot of people talking about shadow healing, shadow healing, shadow healing, but a lot of people are not explaining why shadow healing is important, okay? The reason why shadow healing is important is because the shadow self, when it is oppressed, you can never integrate it and you can never overcome the lesson of the third dimension. The first dimension is the dimension of one. It's a dimension that teaches us that we are all one and we are all connected. In my meditations with my higher self, she's taught me, she's shown me like how we are all interconnected, like this big web. If you think of a web of light around the entire globe, we are all connected to each other and we are all vibrating together at the same time. And some of us are vibrating on a higher dimension. Thank you so much for your badges, for supporting the channel. Everyone is vibrating together, okay? Our higher self is this part of us that is at the highest dimension, which many of us may consider heaven, okay? Which many religions explain as heaven, okay? But what happens is most people don't reach that because they are, in religions, you are fear-mongered out of actually integrating your shadow self. So your higher self is the self that is in the highest vibration movement, okay? It's in the highest frequency dimension. So we have there are endless dimensions, but there are mainly 11 dimensions that humans can travel through, okay? And from what my shadow self explained to me, we are actually in 9 dimensions at the same time. And we can shift dimensions while we're still alive, while we're still here on earth. We can shift between 9 different dimensions at the same time if we master shifting between these facets of ourselves. We have the shadow self, we have our ego self, we have our higher self. You know, it's kind of like that. Think of it when you have those cartoons that are like the devil and the angel on the shoulder, okay? So the devil is depicted as, the shadow self is often depicted as that little devil on our shoulder. Even though, because that's the demonizing of our shadow self. Even though our shadow selves are not evil in nature, but they have the capability of that. And why the shadow self, a lot of times we are taught to oppress it. We are taught to repress it. We're taught to not pay attention to it at all. Just ignore it and it'll go away, right? But that's not true. The more you ignore it, the stronger it grows, the bigger it grows, and the more problematic and disharmonious your life becomes. So, because we're multidimensional beings and we can actually mentally travel, and these dimensions are actually separated by light. They're separated by frequencies. So people who are awake, people who have psychic gifts, we are able to actually see through veils of different frequencies. Such as, for example, when you have a night light, a light that's able to actually see anything that is not visible in the invisible light. That is sort of a physical representation of another dimension. So dimensions are separated by veils of different light, okay? And different frequencies are they're on a scale. They're either lower vibrational or they're higher vibrational. And the lower vibrational is much more connected to our lower thoughts, desires, to the lower polarities, okay? The first dimension teaches us that we're one. The second dimension is where we receive the idea of the masculine and the feminine, and then the masculine and the feminine comes together and creates the third dimension. But here's the problem. We come to Earth to learn to integrate the masculine and the feminine, the light and the darkness, the shadow and the higher self, into the shadow, the higher self, and the ego into one cohesive being, which then, once you've integrated these beings, these energies within yourself, you are able to actually elevate your frequency, your consciousness, to a place where you can shift vibrations, okay? And you can tell in what vibration someone is living in based on how polarized they are. The reason why a lot of people that we know are asleep and are never going to wake up is because they're still polarized. They're still polarized in the idea of good and bad. They're still polarized in the idea of there is no gray for them. It is either good or bad. And everything that's good is good and everything that's bad is bad, and that's not true. We know this. We know that there are layers of gray in everything. So the people who are polarized, blue or red, Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, black or white, these polarizations, is we are born to learn to integrate these polarizations into the middle ground. So when we don't actually integrate these things, we end up not elevating or not learning the lesson of the third dimension. The lesson that we actually came to learn in the third dimension is to integrate and to learn to work together with people who think differently than us, whether we are black or white, whether we're Democrat or Republican, whether we're this or that, learning to cooperate with each other in order to get to a higher vibration of love and cohesiveness. Okay, so learning to integrate, because all of us have a masculine and a feminine. Learning to utilize the both energies of the masculine and the feminine within us to actually, and learning to love both of those energies and utilize them, because they actually assist us in becoming a more whole being. Okay, what happens is when we don't accept that there are layers of gray, or when we can't handle the acceptance of that, we become very obsessive in these radical points, in these polarizations, and our life becomes very disharmonious, and we start to, instead of create in a constructive way, we start to destruct. And also when we're shifting through vibrations, then I ask my higher self, okay, well, why can't everybody just shift through vibrations faster? Like, why can't you just, if all of us have our higher selves, right, that chooses our lessons in every lifetime, why can't you just force us to elevate faster? And she said to me, the reason why is because you can't handle a very fast elevation through frequencies. Most people cannot handle it. There are some souls that have been incarnated many, many times and they can handle the shift through the frequencies. And then there are people who can't handle it, and because every time that you shift or you get an upgrade, you get physically ill. You could get like a little cold or a little cough. That's actually your body upgrading to this new vibration. And if your body is not as healthy as possible, if your mind and your body are not as healthy as possible, when you go through those vibrations, your higher self isn't going to push a elevation on you when you are not capable mentally and physically of handling that elevation, of handling that turn up of the dial to get you to a higher vibration, which is why we have all of the things we have going on in the world right now, because we are currently eating not in the healthiest way. We are currently consuming destructive, very low vibrational content. We are currently, a lot of people are choosing to live in their lower vibrations and rather than striving for the higher vibrations, which causes disharmony, because at the end of it all, we are all one. So that which one person does affects the entire collective, because we are all interconnected with one another. So if many of us are working on raising our vibration, by working on raising our own vibration, we're actually raising the vibration of the collective. And little by little, we're overcoming the vibration of those who are in lower vibrations, right? Because by raising our vibration, we get to a higher level of understanding, a higher level of consciousness that allows us to see how we are all interconnected and how to make the world a better place, basically. Okay? So I asked her, okay, like how does our family, our friends, our soulmates, twin flames play into this? And she was explaining to me that what happens is a lot of the times, and I'm not, and guys, take this as you might, take this if it resonates with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't take it. But because I know people already are going to be like, you're perpetuating suffering. No, here's what it is. Here's the reality. Because suffering exists, whether we like it or not. And here's why. It's because most people are living in their lower vibrations. Okay? Most people don't realize or are naive to the fact that demons exist within people, not outside of them. And that demonic entities are lower vibrations. They are beings that live within lower vibrationals, within lower vibrations and within lower ranges of light, right? And they are hidden by the veils of the lower vibrations. But I'm trying to find a tarot card so I can explain something to you guys. So then we deal with we have these relationships, right? We have our soul families. A lot of us come here with karmic families because these karmic relationships will actually force us to elevate faster. Okay, for example, I had a lot of situations in my childhood that forced me to elevate faster, to become more empathic, to become more aware of my surroundings, to become more aware of my impact on other people, to become more conscientious about how I impact others and how others impact each other. Okay, so I had to go through certain things. I don't know, many of you may be new to here, but I grew up in Dominican Republic until I was 9 years old. And growing up, my most of my childhood, I witnessed a lot of violence. Okay, violence was something that was common, right? Because riots would break out, all that kind of stuff. I would be in the backyard playing with my dolls or whatever, and there would be a riot outside my front door where the military police and the people would be throwing tear gas at each other, bullets at each other, all that kind of stuff, okay? And our higher self chooses missions for us that will be most impactful. And some of us have missions like myself where I'm meant to sit here and explain this to you. My mission is a mission of a teacher, okay? I came to this earth to be a teacher for others, to teach others how to raise their vibration so that they too could reach their highest potential. And every single one of us has a different mission. I know that my soul contract in this lifetime is to be a teacher. Okay? And so what I had to do was, in order for me to strengthen myself, I had to be born into a particular family with particular curses, with particular gifts, with particular situations in place, okay? So that I would be mentally and emotionally, I would be strengthened mentally and emotionally and physically. And whether we like it or not, trauma strengthens us as a soul, whether we like it or not. A lot of people are gonna be like, oh my God, how could you say that? Trauma. Okay, I've been through a lot of trauma of every type, okay? Every type of trauma. I'm talking about sexual, emotional, physical, mental, psychological trauma. I have experienced it. So I'm saying this to you from a place of experience, okay? Trauma strengthens our soul, which is supposed to make us choose to be conscientious and not want to impart that trauma onto others. However, there are many who can't handle that lesson, who can't handle that test, and instead of overcoming their trauma, they become the traumatizer. They choose to stay in their lower vibrations instead of overcoming the trauma and doing better. Many people choose to say, you know what, people were bad to me, so I'm going to be bad to everybody else. Okay? That is a choice that you have to make. That is why we have free will. We have the free will to either elevate our vibration or to choose to continue in that vibration. That is a free will choice that we have. Okay? It makes you aware. It makes you actually hyper aware. And I'm not saying traumatizing others is a good thing at all. But having that experience makes you aware of what is going on in the world in the present time where you chose to incarnate. Okay? Because the whole point of this is of these incarnations is to learn lessons, to strengthen our soul, to elevate the vibration of the entire collective as one. Basically, like, for example, a virus mutates to become stronger, right? So therefore, we are in the process of an energetic mutation to become stronger, okay? And the way that we are able to become stronger is by taking the experience and mutating to our highest self, okay? So, for example, when we are in relationships, a lot of people, we talked about this before. I'll answer some of your questions after I'm done speaking, because my higher self has things to say and I don't want to interrupt the channeling. When we're in relationships, like we spoke about before in the video with where I channeled Archangel Ariel, and when she was talking about divine relationships versus toxic relationships, divine soulmates versus toxic soulmates, divine twin flames versus toxic twin flames. Both of these things are necessary. Love is necessary, but so is hate. They are two polar opposites, but they're both necessary in order for this collective to mutate to become a higher understanding. Okay? We have these two relationships, right? We have the devil, where we have the chained beings, and then we have the angel with the free beings, right? So you have these two relationships, and what happens is a lot of the times people confuse these two. Because we come with soulmates and twin flames, okay? We come with both. We come with toxic soulmates. We come with divine soulmates. We come with toxic, and we come with divine twin flames. A lot of the people think that they have this, but they actually are in this, the toxic one. And the reason, everything is necessary. Everything that happens for a reason, for your soul, okay? For the strengthening of your soul. And if you can't understand what I'm saying or where I'm coming from, that's perfectly fine. You are not yet at the level to understand what I'm saying, and that's okay. You can come back and watch this at another time. But this is important to understand. Everything is necessary. Everything that we have experienced is experienced for a reason. Everything that we are experiencing as a collective is happening now for a reason. It's happening to strengthen ourselves and the collective to our highest self. Okay? I'm going to use the analogy of a video game for those of you who understand video games. In the video, when you play a video game, what do you want to do? You want to win, right? The whole point of the video game is to win the game. You will win in life when you realize life is like a video game. Life is all about jumping the dimensions, and it's all about upgrading through levels. A lot of people don't make it through those levels because they get caught up in their past levels. They cannot shed the emotional connection to their past levels, to their nemesis, to their hero persona, and never get to the understanding that every single player in the game has a purpose in your life. Every single player. Okay? Every single level of life has a purpose to it, to the whole game as a whole. And you have people, like you would in a video game, where you are meant to experience those people for a certain period of time. Example, the toxic relationship. You are meant to experience that to learn certain lessons from that relationship. And then when you overcome those lessons, then and you put yourself in the right right vibration or the right level, the universe just naturally introduces in the divine relationship. Or the universe may actually introduce that divine relationship to force you into the level. Like, for example, if you haven't gotten to, if you just gave up completely, right? There are times when there are certain circumstances will happen to force you to get back up and keep going. Okay? So the universe and your higher self rewards you for certain things, for certain accomplishments, for certain shifts in mental thoughts, and certain shifts in vibration, certain shifts in your emotions, it rewards you any time that it rewards and it tests us anytime, depending on the situation, that we have to shift our vibration in order to mutate to become our higher self, our highest self. Okay? So this is the reason why a lot of the times we are very, very drawn to these relationships where it's a very toxic relationship. Doesn't mean you're supposed to stay in it. However, doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean that, I'm not saying any of that. So for anyone who's watching this and who's automatically getting defensive and going, "Oh my God, Priestess May, you're saying that I should have gone through that." No, that's not what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying and not what your mind is telling you I'm saying. I am saying that there is a purpose for that person. Once you learn the lesson and you let it go, you will see what the reason was for that lesson. Okay? And this is what happens this is similar to like what happens when we're in these relationships and we keep wanting to get back together with someone. And we just can't seem to let him go. We just can't seem to let him go. And a lot of times it's because you haven't yet integrated the lesson that person is not good for you, or that situation is not good for you, or you haven't yet become aware because you're still holding on to the hope that you can change that person, but nobody can change anybody else. You can only change yourself, and you can only change others through changing yourself and raising your own vibration and forcing them to either change or be left behind. Because you can't change them. You can only shift them by shifting your own vibration And when you shift your vibration, they have a choice. They either choose to shift with you, or the universe will push them out of your life. And the divine relationships, the divine soulmates, divine twin flames, are supposed to be like your partners in helping you win the video game. They're supposed to be your partners that come with you and help you win the video game. And both of you usually are put on the same elevation plan. All right, so that you are forced and independently to raise your vibrations without influencing each other. Sometimes you do influence each other, but realize that both of them have a purpose. Everything we experience has a purpose, and then what we decide to do afterwards with that lesson is what determines how the rest of our life continues, and how the next lesson is presented to us, and how the lesson after that. And a lot of the times, many people don't want to accept this because we don't want to accept accountability for our own life. We don't want to accept accountability for our own choices. At the end of the day, we choose everything. The time that we're born, the time and date that we are born in, is a jump portal for our mission, based on the mission that we receive. So if you look at your natal chart, the chart that charts the sky of when you were born, the precise moment of when you were born is a portal for every single one of us. And that portal determines, that portal is chosen based on the mission you determined to have, and based on your soul contract. See, I was born with Sagittarius sun, with Scorpio moon, and Gemini rising. Okay, the Sagittarius is seen as the gypsy philosopher. Scorpio is the occult, the occult lover, the mystery lover, the deep empath. Gemini is the speaker. It's the one that is able to see things from different perspectives. So all of us are told our strengths and our weaknesses by the date and time that we were born, and the star constellations that we were born under. It's a jump portal, okay, for our soul. Okay, so, and many times the people who are brought to us are either people that are there to mess up our mission, or people who are there to give us cheat codes to elevating in our mission and going through the levels of the video game. I'm not saying that we are in a video game. I'm saying that it is like a video game when you have levels that you have to go through. And sometimes our physical vessel doesn't make it through the whole game. But the whole point of it is to play the game the best you can, to achieve as many of the lessons as possible, and receive and get to the highest dimension possible of consciousness while you are on Earth. And as you go through different dimensions, different vibrational elevations, you learn different lessons. When you're in the third dimension, you learn the lesson of balance between the dualities. In the fourth dimension, you learn the lesson of the realm of spirit, of the fact that we are a being beyond our physical bodies. In the fifth dimension, we learn the lesson of love, of empathy, of putting ourselves in other people's shoes. Sixth dimension, we learn the lesson of cooperation, of creation and destruction, and how our own balance and imbalance can cause the creation or destruction. In the 7th dimension, we learn harmony. We learn what it is to be harmonious and abundant, and to be able to create and to manifest through our harmony. In the 8th dimension, we learn our past lives and how our past lives affect and influence our current mission on Earth, and how this mission is meant to affect other missions that you have been on. In the 9th dimension, you get to learn what's called paradise. You get to learn that everything in the universe is interconnected. It is one of the highest forms of consciousness, which is believed that the ascended masters such as Jeshua, Buddha, Muhammad, all these different ascended masters achieved that vibration, and therefore they were able to actually physically control things with their mind and manifest things with their mind. So every dimension has a different lesson. Okay, and then when we pass away, when it is our right time to pass, when it's the right time, because it doesn't work if you terminate the mission, you just start over. So that is why you have different situations, and when it's the right time for you to pass on, you return to the one. You return to the one whole, and you return to your highest self. But while you are here, you are able to connect to your higher self by raising your vibrations. And this is not like a ladder where like you just like boop, boop, boop. There, you can go back and forth. You can be, one day, because the vibration that you're on is affected by your emotions, it's affected by your thoughts, it's affected by an average of your thoughts and emotions. So one day you could be really high vibrational, and you could be like in the 5th or 6th dimension, or 7th dimension, harmony, right? And then the next day somebody cuts you off and you get pissed off and you're like, oh, she's just pulling me down. So it changes based on the experiences, and realize that every single person is a player in the game. So yeah, we are supposed to experience difficult people. We are supposed to experience lower vibrational people. They are there to help us learn, and they are there to help us mutate to our highest selves, just like a virus or like mutates to become stronger. Same thing, our soul mutates to become stronger. Now when you're going through rises or downloads, a lot of the time you may feel a little sick, you might get a little cold, and then there are some people that when we have situations like what we're going through right now, when the entire collective is forced to elevate in vibration at the same time, because it's like we don't have time anymore to wait for all those that are straggling behind. When the entire collective has to grow through, sometimes when the collective has to go through an elevation at the same time and an upload at the same time, sometimes certain people can't handle that elevation and will pass away. I can't describe to you what the 10th, I know that my higher self said that she's in the 11th dimension. I can't describe to you what the 10th or the other 12 are like, but to my understanding, they are where certain angels exist. That's in those vibrations is where certain angels exist. All of our higher selves exist within the 11th dimension. However, because we are lower vibrational, we just can't see them or hear them or communicate. But if you do the work, you meditate, you exercise, you do things to energize your body, your mind, heal your body, your mind, your energy, you are able to hone in and connect with your higher self. The higher dimensions are meant to be experienced while you are incarnated. The higher dimensions can be experienced both while you're incarnated and while you are not incarnated. But if you can experience them while you are incarnated, that is the best thing, because it's like having heaven on earth. Okay, that's what they're talking about when they say, oh, when you die, you're going to go to heaven. Everybody has a heaven. Everybody has a hell. And honestly, hell is more here than it is in another place, because hell is a vibration. It's not a place. It's a personification of a vibration, of a dimension. It's not necessarily a place. And your dimensions are happening within you, within your mind. But just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's not real. So your mind becomes a projector for the vibrations, for the different dimensions. Your third eye, the reason why I say open your third eye is because the third eye is your projector. It's like, imagine it opening up and being like a slide projector. So the vibrations happen, the shifts in vibrations happen, and you can manifest them into this physical reality. You can shift the matrix to your benefit when your third eye is open and you are in a harmonious vibration. When you are in a 7th dimensional vibration and your third eye is open and you're harmonious, you can manifest that harmony into the physical matrix that we are currently in. Every dimension is a different vibration, because once we are no longer in our physical vessels, we go to different dimensions, and these different dimensions don't necessarily require physical vessels. To my understanding, this is the only, the matrix that we are in is the only way that we can experience physical vessels. The matrix is not the same as the third dimension. Third dimension is the vibration of balance, of the fight between good and evil, for pushing itself to become harmonious. So many of you may have your ears popping, your third eye buzzing. That's because right now, as you are absorbing what I'm saying to you, if you're able to understand it, because those who are not yet at that vibration, you may understand it on a surface level, but you won't integrate it yet because you're not yet there. If you are able to integrate it, you will have physical responses to what I am saying. So right now, those who are not able to handle certain elevations will decide to terminate. Their higher selves will decide it's time to terminate, and then that person will pass on to the next mission that they are meant to go on. All right, let's go ahead and go through some questions. Someone asked, what about justice for trauma? Many of us may have the soul contract of getting justice for others, and in order for us to get justice for others, we may have to experience what other people have gone through. It doesn't have to be necessarily the same exact mission or the same exact trauma. Some people may not even be aware of it, right? They may have experienced emotional trauma and they're very drawn to helping others never have to experience any other sort of trauma. Okay, so your trauma doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same that someone else is going through, but if you feel a sense of needing to defend others and stuff like that, as long as it's in a healthy way. And remember, it's important to also understand the vibration of how are you helping others. Is it more destructive to yourself, or is it oppressing? Is it suppressing the need for healing that wound, or is it truly your higher purpose? Because when you're in your higher purpose, you can help others. When you're in the vibration of higher purpose, you can help others much more than if you are still suppressing and not dealing with your own trauma and not healing your own trauma before you jump into healing other people. Anybody else have any other questions? And this took me many years to understand. So don't think that like I just figured this out in one night. This took me years to understand. It took me years of introspection, of awareness, of hypervigilant awareness. And that pushed me to understand my soul contract. Karmic twin flames or karmic soulmates are there to balance any karmic lessons that you have from previous lifetimes. To my understanding. Remember, we're not always the good guy. Sometimes we were the villain. That's one thing that we have to get that we have to remember as souls, is that we are always playing a part. So in previous lifetimes, we may have been the villain. And in this lifetime, we may have to be the receiver of our own energy, because everything you put out, you receive in return. So we may have been the bad guy before. And in this lifetime, we have to maybe experience the opposite of that. Not every person gets a twin flame. You have to be on a very high mission to have a twin flame, but you can have a divine soulmate, which is someone who can assist you in becoming that twin flame energy, and in following incarnations, you both may become twin flames. Yes, there are other earth schools that other souls experience in different dimensions. For example, there is something called parallel dimensions, okay? So there are dimensions within our dimension, because remember I told you every dimension has branches, okay? So there are dimensions within our dimension, and then there are parallel dimensions where we ourselves are in other parallel universes, learning different missions or on different missions. So every dimension, every universe has branches that come off of it. Exactly. Our souls are complete. We are complete souls. There are other souls that are born that are either karmic souls. The connection soulmate, that's not talking about someone who's like a separate soul, who's like a part of your soul. That's talking about the cord that you have, the karmic or the divine cord that you have. You either have a cord that is for good and for harmony, or you have a cord that is for toxic disharmony. Your twin flame doesn't always find you in every dimension, because we have choices. And what happens if like you didn't learn your one of the things that happens is you don't learn a particular lesson. And this is sad, but you may not learn a particular lesson, and then when your twin flame presents itself, you decide, you know what, I'm done dealing with men. I'm not dealing with men anymore, or I'm not dealing with women anymore. I don't care. So then your divine twin flame presents itself and you turn them away. You turn away your blessings because you haven't used your discernment. So your karmic relationships and your karmic relationships are supposed to teach you discernment. They're supposed to teach you discernment, but because you're so traumatized from them and you don't, and if you haven't healed that trauma, your divine soulmate or your divine twin flame may come along and you may turn it away. You may turn away your blessing because you haven't learned discernment to discern what's good and what's bad for you. What happens is a lot of readers now are confusing when they see the connection. They may not be clairvoyant. They're confusing a toxic twin flame for a divine twin flame, and they're not the same. Deja vu is like when different dimensions, for example, this is not a dimensional chart, just so you know, I'm just using this as an example. Let's pretend that each of these lines, again, this is not a dimensional map, this is completely different, this is something else. But let's pretend that each of these lines is a dimension that's branching off from the third dimension, from the dimension we're currently in. Each of these lines is a branch. When these lines intersect each other, that's when we have deja vu. So exactly. You might have dated a Sagittarius in the past, and then now you're like traumatized by Sagittarians. You're like, oh my God, every Sagittarius is evil. So then your divine flame comes along and is a Sagittarius, and you're like, oh, you're a Sagittarius, never mind. I don't want I don't want nothing to do with you. And then you return away your blessings. You can't see your other self unless you're dreaming. You can see your other selves that are branched off into these different lines, right? So let's say, again, this is not a dimensional chart. I'm going to make a dimensional chart to show it to you guys. Okay, this is not a dimensional chart. I'm just using this as an example. But let's say right here, right, is a deja vu point. And you are walking along in your path, each one of you, in every dimension, in every different direction in the universe, off of the third dimension. If you can't really see each other because you're in different vibrations and you're in different dimensions. There's veils between you. So you can't really see each other. So you're living different lives in each of these dimensions. I actually got to see in my dreams a few of my dimensions, and in another dimension I'm married to someone else. In another dimension I'm married to Sam, but Sam is slightly different from what she is here. In another dimension, I have a better relationship with certain people that I had really terrible relationships with. So there's different experiences. And then there's past lives. So that's why I said our souls are infinite and they're multi-dimensional beings. We are multi-dimensional. Yes, they look like me. In the past lives, you don't look the same. I don't look the same. My past lives, I look different. But in my current dimensions, parallel universes, I look the same. They look just like me. So the zodiac signs are instructions for your highest self, but you have free will, so you can choose to not be your highest self. Do I connect with light language? Light language is equal to, when people speak in tongues at church? That's basically what light language is. Some people are faking it. Some people are genuinely speaking it. It depends on the vibration you're in. I'm reading your questions. You were with your brother in another dimension. I'm sorry, with your husband's brother. Can you share one thing you feel comfortable about, one of your past lives you feel called to share about? In one of our past lives where I was with Sam was a sailor. And I was a lady of the night. I worked at a brothel. And that's how we met in that past life. Hey, I haven't been a saint in every life. So at that time we met at the brothel. When I did my past life regression, as soon as I saw Sam walk in, I knew based on her eyes who it was. Even though this person had a different name, this person had a different lifestyle, this person was completely different. In another past life, I was giving birth. I saw how I died. I died in childbirth. In that past life, I had a madama that raised me. I was a girl. I actually was able to find record of this person that I was. I was a girl. I lived in the 1920s, and I lived in the South in North Florida. I was married to a pastor, but he was also Sam's soul, which is funny because Sam was never introduced to religion in this lifetime, but in that lifetime she was a pastor. And he was one of the ones he was pushing for equal rights for people of color and stuff like that. So in that lifetime I had a madama, what we would consider a madama, as the person who helped me raise my children. And the last child that I died at childbirth, and I was 24 years old. Is it possible to feel close to a friend that is toxic yet beneficial? Yes, it is, because sometimes our friends were soul families before, and sometimes we are supposed to influence their growth, but not at our expense. So we're supposed to influence them to grow spiritually, but not at our own expense. So the boundaries have to be very clear. Hold on, I'm trying to see your... Honey, you can control that. You speak to someone, pray, call upon your angels. When people pass away, do they see when they pick another life? Yes. We are multidimensional beings, and we can incarnate, fractals of ourselves can incarnate in multiple places at multiple times. So when someone passes away, they go through what's called, that fragment, that part of the soul that incarnated in that mission. It's very different. It's very hard to explain because I'm still understanding that, but they don't have the same, there's the concept of time does not apply to the spiritual realm the way it applies to us. So time and space, the ideas of the third dimension, the restrictions of the third dimension do not apply to the spiritual realm. So a part of us can, for example, my grandfather, right, who passed away, his spirit can be with me, but he could choose to incarnate as well at the same time, because time is not the same. Sometimes souls will wait to incarnate. will wait for other soul families to pass away, or will wait for other members of their soul family. Can you be pregnant and still practice? You can. It's just not recommended to do certain things. So, yeah. Someone just asked something about what happens, like, why do some souls commit suicide? Some souls commit suicide as a way to terminate their mission. However, a lot of the times this happens because, one, someone is interfering with their mission. So a dark energy may be interfering with their mission. So that's why it's important to call upon your higher self. And you may not be living in harmony with who you truly are, with what you truly came to do in this lifetime. So you may try to terminate your mission, but that will just force you to start over. So it's really important to focus on what brings harmony to you, because what brings harmony to you is what the mission that you're supposed to be on here. It will feel like, okay, I'm on the right path. So it's important to, guys, I had to give up a lot of things. I had to give up, as someone who had suicidal tendencies in the past, I can tell you that I had to give up a lot of things. I had to give up a lot of people that were interfering with my mission and with my harmony. And once I learned to do that, and once I learned to stand up for myself, I was able to overcome those things. I was able to overcome those situations. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for ourselves, for the betterment of ourselves and the betterment of those we're supposed to impact in the world. Sometimes, especially during souls that can't handle the third dimensional frequency, when the energies here are too heavy, that's usually when we have those suicidal tendencies. Is because our soul maybe is either has incarnated so many times and is so elevated that our energies here on earth are so heavy that it can be extremely difficult. So it's important to do what brings you harmony, connect with the earth, remove yourself off social media, find people that are supportive, find people that are loving, find people, even if it's someone who doesn't live in the same state as you or the same place as you, finding someone who you can talk to is extremely important. Someone asked me an interesting question. I'm trying to find it. Can't find it. Someone asked me, what is this in the background? This is an archangel sigil. It's used to conjure archangels. That's all I'm allowed to say on that. What do you mean by justice? Justice can mean different things for different people. Do you mean justice revenge, or do you mean as someone? It depends what you mean by justice. That's something that you would have to sit with your higher self and define for yourself. What does justice mean? Because justice doesn't always mean revenge. Justice, from experience, I can tell you that even if you receive a justice from the external sources, if you haven't worked on healing that within yourself, it's not going to feel fair. No, do not. You cannot seek justice in that seeking justice in the way that you're speaking of, it can be destructive for your soul. My suggestion is to work on healing yourself and moving forward. It's not your fault, but but unfortunately it is our responsibility after dealing with trauma. Although the trauma is not our fault, it is our responsibility to heal and move forward. Yes, we are all valuable. And we are all here on a particular mission. I'm sorry to hear that. Do what you can, but know that no matter what, karma always comes for those who have done wrong. And my prayer is any person who has hurt you, may they receive the karma they deserve. But I would definitely seek assistance, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical assistance for what you have dealt with, because that situation can be very damaging. And I definitely know how damaging those situations can be. Yeah. But in no way is your trauma your fault, is what I want to make everyone understand. Is the trauma you go through is not your fault, but it is chosen. It happens for a reason. We have this delusion that that everything in life is supposed to be good. And it's not. There is a purpose for good and evil. It's not right, in my opinion, but from what I've been explained to by my higher self and my spirit guides, every single experience is there to make you even better. And it's not the best of experiences, and I'm not dismissing your experience, and I'm not downplaying your experience at all. But every experience is meant to mutate you to even a better person. I didn't see that question that you guys are talking about. I don't see it. Is it possible to need an unbinding from a karmic flame over 10 years ago? He tries to contact me in my dreams very often. Yes, you may need an unbinding, but I would highly suggest getting a consultation so that my spirit guides and your spirit guides can say what it is that you need. Because again, that's why there's some spiritual work that we have to do, because every single experience that we have leaves a residue. It leaves an energetic residue. And that energetic residue is what we are supposed to help remove off of you so that you can continue on your mission. My best tip for connecting with your higher self is meditation. In my magical VIP group, we talk about how to connect with the higher self. So if you want to dig deeper into that, there are other things you need to learn first. And I go over that in my magical VIP group. You can join that in link in bio. Good. I'm very glad. Don't wish bad on people, but an ex-karmic just got COVID. Failed the upgrade. Or possibly gonna fail the upgrade. That doesn't mean you failed the upgrade. Let me correct myself, because people take things out of context. Just because you got the panda virus does not mean that you failed the upgrade, okay? Okay. You're welcome. Can your higher self visit in dreams? Yes. However, most of the time your higher self won't, because it doesn't want to freak you out. You don't want to freak yourself out. So that voice that you hear in your head that gives you direction, that's your higher self. Okay? That voice that goes, hey, I don't think that's such a good idea. I don't think you should do that. That's your higher self. You know, like when you hear like, abort, abort, abort. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, like that when your toxic ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend calls you and you're like, should I pick up the phone? And you have a little voice in your head that says, you shouldn't do that. That's your higher self. Your shadow self is like, oh yes, let's see what they want to say. Let's see. Your shadow self is always the one that has all the pettiness. All the pettiness. I know, because my shadow self is the worst. Your shadow self is the one that goes, I'm glad that he got the karma. That's why I said the other day, I'm not a good person, y'all. I choose to be a good person. I listen to my higher self, okay? None of us are good or evil. We are a beautiful mixture of all those things. And at the end of the day, we have free will, which gives us the choice to be our highest selves. You're welcome. You're very welcome. So I'm going to have to rewatch this live because my higher self was channeling some things and I don't even remember what I just said. So we are a beautiful mixture of the two. And that is the point of this third dimensional vibration is to learn balance through our triggers, through our good experiences and our bad experiences. And then once we have learned to overcome our triggers, then we can have more good experiences in our lives. But again, this doesn't place blame on anyone, but it helps you understand why, like, some of your family members are clueless. Some of our friends are clueless. It's like, are you awake? Hello? Anyone in there? Hello? How are you? Their mission may be to be asleep. They may be a much newer soul, whose mission is just to worry about the mundane life, not worry about elevating spiritually, not worry about their soul, not worry about like lessons, and it's just like you're speaking about vibrations and vibes and, you know, lessons and the soul, and they're just like glassy-eyed. Oh. They watch the news all day. They allow their programming to continue back to their regular programming because they're just not meant to wake up yet. So we have to have empathy. I used to get frustrated at those people because I was like, how are you not awake? And I had to learn to not even just be like, okay, that's your experience. That's the experience of your reality that you are manifesting. So the spirit that used to mount my grandfather used to always say to me, remember, Remember that every head is a universe. It's like a programming. Do you guys see the new Tesla bot? What if you're a robot and you don't even know it? Just kidding. It's our program. It's their programming. Our programming is to, our higher self's programming in us is to elevate spiritually, to seek, to be curious, to seek knowledge, to seek the information of the higher vibrations, higher levels. Other souls' programmings are just to follow orders, just to do as they're told. That's different programming. So we as souls, that doesn't make us better than them. It just makes us different. So we have to be empathic to that. And through our elevation, help their elevation. Help their programming adapt and change, because then they start seeing the changes that we're manifesting into the matrix, and then they're like, because their programming is to follow, their programming is to copy what they see and do it. Then we really become in control. Those of us who are working on becoming harmonious and manifesting things into the matrix, we end up controlling, along with God, obviously, our higher self, because our higher self always does what God, the universe, is seeking to bring into the matrix. So as our higher self elevates us and we put into manifestation the vision of our higher selves, of the collective, of the higher energetic collective, we end up shifting the matrix and end up making changes. Like, for example, the iPhone, right? Like the 1920s, when they had that thing where they had to put it up to their ear and like talk like this, right? Nobody ever thought we were gonna have a cell phone, right? So this is a manifestation of someone's higher self knowledge into technology, into the matrix. So when these things become physical, then those who have the lower dimensional programmings then are forced to shift and change into the new programming. So the best way to really change the world is to elevate ourselves and become productive. Every single one of us is unique. Every single one of us has a different mission that is precisely programmed for a different purpose, right? No two people have the same fingerprints. Even twins have slightly different fingerprints. So we don't have the same fingerprints. We don't look the same, most of us. We may look alike, but we don't look the same, exact same. We don't have the same soul. So what makes us think that we're supposed to have the same way of thinking, that we're supposed to have the same religions, the same things? No, we're all supposed to have our own unique thing that makes us come together and make a better whole. So that's all that I have for you guys tonight. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for all of you who submitted the badges. I appreciate it. That's going to go into our piggy bank for supporting local charities. Aliens don't look the same. You think they do, but they don't. You think they do, but they don't, because you're not seeing subtle differences. So for example, every snake does not look the same. But because there are different species and we're not paying attention to their differences, we don't see them. Extraterrestrials don't look the same. They may have similar frames, but they don't look exactly the same. If you look at different patterns on snakes, for example, they have unique patterns. If you look at certain birds, even though they're the same species, they some of them have similar feathers, but they're very unique in the way that they are laid. So there's a lot of differences that we just don't see in other species in the universe, because we're just not trained to see them. But they are all individual as well. Like cats all look different. Even if they're the same exact type of cat, they have slightly different spots or all those kinds of things. Even the grays have some differences. We're just not trained to see them. It's kind of like people who can't tell the difference between two different people of the same race. I literally have met people that can't tell the difference between two Hispanic people, or can't tell the difference between two people of color, or can't tell the difference between two Asian people. And it's because they're just not trained to see the differences. There are just subtle differences to differentiate. You're welcome. No, they all look different. We're not trained to it because we haven't experienced them outside of what has been presented to us. The only, if 5 different aliens came to us, extraterrestrials, showed up in front of us, and we had a chance to see each and every one of them, we would probably be like, oh, okay, I see that there is a difference between you. Like, even if they're part of the same species, we would be able to notice the differences. But we have to train ourselves. Because again, we're like a program. We have to train ourselves to see things differently. Because we're not born with prejudice, we are taught prejudice. We're taught to notice differences between each other. We're taught this by our parents. We're not born that way. There are certain things like you're naturally drawn to a particular mate. Those things are things you're born with. You're naturally drawn to a particular mate. You're naturally drawn to particular colors, particular skills, particular gifts. However, certain things like prejudices are actually taught to us. We have to actually learn it through programming in our childhood. And then we're forced to unlearn our programming as we grow up. In order to find, that's why when we're children, we feel like we are our true selves. And then we go through the programming phases of like school and our parents telling us what is right and wrong and what we should and shouldn't be doing. And then when we're older, we feel lost. We're like, I'm not myself. It's because you went through all that programming. Now you have to deprogram yourself. And then you really don't truly find yourself until you're like in your 30s. I just realized I thought I knew myself when I was 20, and I don't. I didn't know myself truly until a few years ago. So, all right, everybody. Many, many blessings to you. Is literally trying to refine your identity, and shed the parts of your identity that are not yours, that were put there by other people who have the programming that everybody needs to be the same, because that's all they can handle is everybody being the same. A lot of the people who are in authority, they can't handle everybody people being different. They feel like that's out of their control. If everybody's different and unique, that's out of their control. So we have to force everybody to be the same. It's kind of like The Giver. If you haven't read The Giver, you need to read it. Why, thank you. It's the Eternity Potion that I'm taking. All right, everyone. I really have to go now. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully this brings some understanding. I understand if those who some people may have left because they were not yet at the level where they were ready to receive this information, and that's okay. So, you know, if you feel confused or you feel like you need to come back to this video, that's good with me. Many blessings, and I will see you all later.